And do we have a presentation on that? For
Just very quickly, Councilmember Medina, this is Brooke Bell for the record. This is the fourth amendment to an agreement with the city has with Arapahoe County to maintain Dump Valley Urban Park for an annual cost or an annual compensation of $176,000. This agreement, we've been doing this work for the county for 24 years. It is a one-year agreement because they are doing renovations on that park, and they've asked us to continue to maintain the areas that are that we can maintain, and then we'll revisit it in 1 year with regard to future maintenance expectations. The work includes the cost to provide mowing, irrigation services, and trash and typical maintenance activities that you see in a park.
all right. Any questions from committee members? None.
So the question, do the city council members approve us moving this forward to study session?
I'm good to move it forward. Council members?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, there you go. Motion is to move it forward. Next up is a resolution to name nature play area at Star K Ranch for Richard Gary Black Jr. And do we have a presentation on that, or?
I'll speak to that item as well.
Okay.
This is Brooke Bell for the record. This is a resolution to name the planned nature play area at Star K Ranch for Mr. Richard Gary Black Jr. pursuant to a settlement agreement reached in the matter of his death. The city agreed to exercise its best efforts to name a park in his honor. Pro staff met with Mr. Richard Black's family members to review appropriate park and play area projects to name in his honor. The Black family member chose the nature play area planned for the Star K Ranch as it had special meaning for the family. Mr. and Mrs. Black and their children and grandchildren often visited and had fond memories of that area. That park has been under, we've been working on a design. We have a budget for the park and we're nearing the design completion. So the timing it suits the family as well. The item has been approved by the Aurora Historic Preservation Commission. That approval was on February 14th of 2023. And our question is, do city council members from the policy committee approve moving this item forward to study session?
Committee members?
Councilmember, yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you're muted. Thanks for the update and presentation. I remember, you know, I'm not super, you know, not to discuss like the details of anything that's happened since this incident happened, but kind of shortly thereafter, there was like requests from community members wanting to honor Mr. Black in naming a park, and I'm glad to see that there was some resolution. I know I got a few requests for that, and you know, we have our processes and such, and I know that it was always under advisement, and there was this whole other, you know, process kind of underway that it didn't make for a quick answer, right? So I just want to say that I'm glad that there was some resolution there, and I think I'm at Star K Ranch all the time, and I think it would be a lovely place to honor Mr. Black.
Thank you. Councilmember Marcano?
I have nothing more to add, but I'm in support of this.
Okay, I am in support as well, so we'll move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. This is Brooke. May I speak? Councilman Medina, thank you. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm going to turn this meeting over now to, back to you, Councilmember Chair Medina. I'm on vacation, and so I'm going to go ahead and continue on the way, and the PROS staff will be able to answer your questions and speak to the future items, and I'll be back in the office on Monday. So thank you very much for your time
Thank
this
you.
morning.
Enjoy your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. And our next agenda item is 4C, which is our parks, our places, and our park study update.
Good morning, Chair Medina, other members of the committee. My name is Ryan French. I am a project manager with the Planning, Design, and Construction team within PROS. Today, I'll be sharing with you an update to the ongoing PROS master plan project named Our Parks, Our Places, a plan for Aurora's parks, recreation, and open space. Next slide, please. As a bit of a refresher, the purpose of the department master plan is to develop a long-range vision for all things parks, recreation, open space, programming, special events, and golf. This document will provide guidance and recommendations for 5 to 10 years into the future. There are 5 key objectives or objective areas that were developed early in the project and are closely tied to Aurora Place's comprehensive plan. These objectives include community connections, equitable access, health and safety, sustainable growth, and operational efficiencies. The final master plan document will seek approval and adoption as an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. The project kicked off mid-year 2022 with and was anticipated to be completed within 12 to 18 months. This project includes 4 large phases of work, each building on one another with public engagement strategically placed throughout to gather new information and share back what we have learned from previous phases. The project is currently wrapping up phase 2 and will be entering phase 3 within the next few weeks. The project remains on schedule to begin approval processes beginning in September of this year. Next slide, please. Phase 1 of the project was discovery. This phase focused on gathering and synthesizing information internally and connecting with the public to learn about the community's use of our systems today. A public survey was conducted asking questions about items such as frequency of use and favorite activities and programs. Within phase 1, the team had an estimated 7,000 touch points with the community. This included 13 in-person events, attendance and contact with 12 boards and commissions, and a variety of print and digital marketing drafted in the top 6 languages in Aurora. Next slide, please. We found great success in 2 citywide open house events conducted at the end of phase 1. These were held at Central Recreation Center and Moorhead Recreation Center. With over 400 attendees, these events provided the opportunity to collect additional survey responses, but also provide the opportunity to educate the public about the whole of the PROS system. Each open house shared a number of educational boards and included interactive activities and questions for adults and youth. Demographics of the survey respondents and event attendees was collected to ensure we tracked the populations we were connecting with. This information then allowed us to adjust our future event locations, hours, event types to strategically target underrepresented groups. Next slide, please. The phase 1 survey had nearly 1,000 respondents and provided some very interesting statistics. We found 51% of respondents think the PROS system today is good, but definitely has room for improvement. We documented the top activities and places to visit and collected what folks believe to be in greatest need. Data also showed that 40% of respondents visited their preferred parks, open space, recreation center, attended their recreation program or golf courses at least weekly. The largest demographic response category was residents aged 35 to 44 with children living in the home, closely followed by older adults over the age of 65. Next slide, please. The launch of phase 2 coincided with the phase 1 open houses, and this provided an opportunity to share back what we had learned from the first survey and launch a second public survey focused on the gaps, needs, and barriers residents feel existed within our PROS system. This phase included another round of in-person engagement events and ongoing connections with the boards, commissions, and other stakeholders. Additionally, from lessons learned in phase 1, we expanded our outreach to local businesses, held small consultant-led focus groups, and connected with over 400 families through both public and private preschools. We estimated during this phase an additional 6,000 plus community touchpoints, which helped to reach a larger demographic and more representative population. Next slide, please. The city hosted 2 additional open house events for phase 2 in February of 2023 to reach areas of the city, new areas of the city rather. They were hosted at Expo Recreation Center, home to the new esports lounge, and the newly opened Southeast Recreation Center and Fieldhouse. These open houses focused on asking questions about gaps, needs, and preferences residents feel about the future of PROS priorities. Additionally, a set of 6 guiding principles was shared for initial public reaction. Next slide, please. The guiding principles were first developed and reviewed with the PROS management team and presented and confirmed by the public at our open house events. The development of the principles responded to the categories of responses, or the categories, and had developed through public engagement and the gaps and needs assessments of PROS data. Each of these was created to respond to one of the 5 key objective areas, and now provide an opportunity to categorize and more clearly organize the recommendations as we look forward to phase 3 and 4. Next slide, please. A little bit about survey number 2. With a little over 550 responses to the second survey, we were able to identify trends and barriers residents feel exist within the PROS system today. 53% of respondents indicated that distance or safety concern were the main barriers keeping them from visiting PROS sites or utilizing PROS programming. Other top categories for not participating in PROS programs included classes being offered at inconvenient times, lack of knowledge of programs being offered, or not offering programs individuals were interested in. Next slide, please. So looking forward to phase 3, we'll soon be wrapping up phase 2 and launching into phase 3, refining ideas. These next phases will bring together all of the information collected and begin to draft recommendations and final outcomes of the written master plan. We'll also be working to develop what we are calling a digital modeling tool or equity tool. The purpose of this tool is to manage, overlay, and weigh all of the data PROS tracks, such as where specific amenities are located, past special events locations, or even historical capital investment project investment, and help guide future decision-making and recommendations for future PROS projects. The phase 4 is kind of final confirmation with the public review period and what we hope to be a celebration of what we have learned and how this guides the department into the future. Again, we are anticipating work through the standard approval process and anticipate completion and adoption beginning in September 2023. Next slide, please. With a previously identified need to collect, analyze, and report on current and future dog parks in the city, a dog park study was added to run as a concurrent project to the larger master plan efforts earlier this year, or last year at this point. This study will take a deeper dive into the current city inventory of dog parks, their condition, and their location and service areas within the city. We will be launching one additional survey focused on dog parks to gather more feedback from the community. With a few more anticipated in-person events and the survey, our goal is to identify issues and opportunities for all dog parks in Aurora, meaning both those public and private, such as those managed, built and managed by metro districts, but open to the public. All the information gathered through this study will be used to develop a set of design standards and best practices for the development of any future dog parks or dog park renovation projects that take place within the city. Next slide, please. The dog park study is well underway and has already completed a number of stakeholder conversations with internal departments to understand additional perspectives and desired outcomes. This has included outreach to Aurora Water, animal services teams, and other long-range planning teams within the city. The public engagement portion of the study is anticipated to launch in late April. All outcomes of the survey and stakeholder conversations will be drafted into a final study and presented as an appendix item of the fuller master plan document.
Councilmember Medina, I have a question if I'm able to ask.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, and apologies for the interruption. I was wondering if in the assessment and master planning process, if y'all were considering density of population in the configuration. So this was an item that myself, Councilmember Marcano, I believe, and Councilmember Hiltz had directed staff to incorporate dog park planning, and one of the way that we had traditionally collected data was devoid of the density in the areas. And as you can imagine, in Ward 1 being the most densely populated, and frankly, with the upzoning and kind of just more modern design principles, that's going to, I think, be more of the case. Can you talk a little bit more about how density will factor into the master planning process generally, and if that's the same for the dog park study portion of this?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Murillo. So density is definitely a part of the larger study. Essentially, what we are doing is we're looking at this in terms of the neighborhood layout and grid that is developed by the planning department. What we're doing is taking the census data and assigning a population density to each one of these neighborhoods, and then giving them essentially a density score that will play into some of the tools that we're developing to help understand future recommendations based on that population density and the gaps that are created looking at the service areas of the amenities offered at our existing PROS sites. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think I'd like to learn more about how you're calculating density, just so I'm aware, because that makes sense. I just, I'm not the technical one. Y'all are, so I'd love to learn more and do a follow-up conversation on that. Uh, let's see, density. Oh, I feel like I have a follow-up question and it's escaping me. But maybe I'll remember it before you end your presentation or when we follow up. Thanks so much for the answer.
Absolutely. Next slide, please. So we're actually very close to wrapping up here. To stay informed, we continue to encourage everyone to stay up to date by visiting our project page on engageaurora.org/Aurora Parks. Here you can find links to all past open house material, upcoming in-person events, and links to any active surveys. Notification of events and surveys are also posted on all social media platforms. If there are any specific questions, you can reach out to the project team directly at prosmasterplan@auroragov.org. I appreciate you all inviting me to speak with you here today, and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions.
All right, committee members, Do you have any additional questions?
No,
Excited to see this moving forward.
All right.
yeah, no questions here. I'm excited as well. I do think that I'll follow up with staff on kind of just like the full process and how that's calculated, just for my knowledge. But I love to see that we're being intentional about, open green space, and especially when it comes to Ward 1, but we have a deficit of green, like park space specifically. And I hope that this will support us in rectifying that disparity. And, frankly, this is like the mechanism that the older parts of the city have to include green spaces, unlike undeveloped or newly developing parts of the city, right? The green spaces is a little bit more incorporated and contemplated in, a master planning process, where that wasn't necessarily the case in the past. So I want to definitely learn more, and I really thank staff for your presentation and your due diligence on the process. Thank you.
I have just a couple questions on the surveys. Uh, on the safety and security, did you drill down and find out any specifics? Like, was it in parks? Was it centers, or was it just the locations that prompted that?
Oftentimes, so the questions related to safety were about perceived safety and some of the design of centers and locations of areas, timing, lighting, basically some of the kind of information that we could help guide us towards better safety planning strategies and design. So some of that included recommendations of additional lighting within parks, monitoring parks after hours. I think, there's been additional conversation about what that means for park rangers. A lot of it, we don't have a lot of really specific things regarding safety, because the questions were asked more about what we can do to create more welcoming spaces and what it means to invite more individuals and groups into our spaces. One of the responses that we heard more frequently was the perception of safety greatly increased when more individuals were seen actively in our parks. So I think what we'll be focusing on is how to actually bring more people to our parks and rec centers and open spaces, as that seems to be what helps people feel a little bit more at ease.
Okay, thank you. Yep, and I certainly approve this moving forward as well. So thank you for the presentation and appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone.
With that, I think, do we have any miscellaneous matters for consideration? Seeing none. Any topics for next month's meeting? Anyone from the committee? Or
Did
anybody?
you have anything planned at this point? I don't remember the full list of items.
I don't either right off. I would like to look at, well, I think I sent something a couple months back, I want to remember, to have pros look at what potentially a teen center would look like. Just some just basic of building and things of that nature. So I'd like to follow up on that for sure. Just want to see what that kind of looks like, because I'm trying to create a framework of people from the outside to participate in this venture as well. So it's not all on pros team or all on city, to get this to be a community led kind of project, so that no one entity is having to pump all the resources into it. I want it to be a community led. So I just want to get this side so I can be able to have some kind of framework so that I can present it to other people on the outside, to kind of move that. And also, since you're talking about the dog parks, are you looking at any specific locations? mean, that's something
This is
else I'd
Tom Tully.
like
I'm
to
acting
entertain as
for-
well.
We don't have anything specific yet on locations, but it is being looked at. Yes.
Okay.
And then also for a topic next month, I believe Brooke wanted to present where we're at on turf conversions for this year.
Okay. Sounds good.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm also hoping we could get some more information on what the cost would be to expand the Utah pool into a proper rec center. Because I feel like I've heard conflicting estimates. I think at our winter workshop we had, it was like a $40 million outlay. But I've heard before that it could be as little as 20. So I just kind of wanted to see if we could get a better idea of what that really looks like. And then maybe what methods we might be able to explore to get that to happen sooner rather than later. So I've heard from a lot of my constituents, they're very excited about the new rec centers in the southeast part of town, but you know, they feel that Ward 4 and Central Aurora is a little neglected. So I'd like to see what we can do.
Tom Tully again. We can look into that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns?
Chair Medina, Laura Perry, if I can
Yes,
ask
ma'am.
a question on the teen center. So to clarify, are you looking for, in terms of options and framework, can you expand a little bit more on that? Are you thinking this would be a city-run teen center at one of our rec centers, or a teen center that the city partners on with a nonprofit partner? I think a little bit more advisement can help
Right.
us better frame the presentation to meet your needs.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at a public-private partnership. So yeah, some outside, you know, as well, because I don't feel that the burden should be all of the city as well. I mean, I'd like it to be on a facility of the city so that, you know, we have kind of some jurisdiction over it. But I also think that there's entities, I think, that can do a good job of that with the help of our staffing, I think, as well. And I'm trying to make it a little more robust too. So what I want to include, just so you know, is not just the recreation components. I would like to have some wraparound services around mental health, around entrepreneurship. I'd like to bring in the trades because I've been talking to them. They want to be able to offer some trade trainings for youth, you know. And then also, I'm also looking internally to us as a city for staffing. You know, we have staffing needs obviously in pros and other parts of the department. Is that could we train people there also for those vacancies that we currently have in city, so that we're actually hiring and grooming our own people in our community to be able to take over those specific jobs and stuff. And so those are kind of the framework that I'm looking at. So does that help?
It does, yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, concerns, council members? Murillo, Marcano?
Nothing from me.
All right.
Nothing here. Thank you, Councilmember
Thank you all.
Medina.
Thank you. And we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all pro staff. Keep doing the great job you do. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.